endlessly fascinated by how free organic matter, that many consider to be garbage, can enhance soil fertility and enable us to grow food that is as good or better than what can be found in an expensive organic grocery. And I have to admit that part of my fascination comes from the fact that this so-called trash has made it possible for us to grow everything from turnips to tomatoes without spending hard-earned money on store-bought fertilizers. We've been collecting free organic matter for our garden for years, but last year we stepped up our efforts considerably in anticipation of having to fill several new raised beds. In addition to the food scraps, used coffee grounds, autumn leaves, and yard waste we were already collecting, we also collected spent brewery grains, horse manure, and straw. I'm happy to say that our efforts paid off and that we had enough compost, worm castings, and mulch to fill 5 new raised beds. So today I thought I'd take you on a tour of the new raised beds and talk a little bit about what we're growing and what organic matter we're growing in. Early this spring, I filled this small raised bed with compost made mostly from aged wood chips and used coffee grounds, with a little comfrey and green yard waste thrown in. At the time I made the compost, I had run out of autumn leaves and I hadn't yet discovered a free source for straw, so I used aged wood chips as my brown ingredient. The wood chips are great, but they do take longer to break down, and more sifting is required before applying the compost to the garden. I planted sunchokes in the compost without adding any other amendments. Even though this spot is a little shady for sunchokes, they're doing well and we're really looking forward to our first sunchoke harvest this fall. To maximize our use of space in our small garden, I also planted radishes in the bed, and we've been enjoying them for the last couple of weeks. We used the same compost in our blueberry bed as well, but also added acidic soil amendments because blueberries like a pH of around 5. Again, to maximize our limited space, I also planted Parisian carrots in the bed. Because most of the acidic amendments are concentrated around the blueberry plants, I'm hoping that the pH won't be too low for the carrots, which do well in a pH as low as 5.5. I talked about our potato bed in my last video, so I won't go into too much detail here, but I would like to show you how much they've grown in just the past 4 days or so. The potatoes were planted and hilled in a mulch of free organic matter, including leaves, worm castings, compost, used coffee grounds, comfrey, and eggshells, and we couldn't be happier with the results. Now let's take a look at our field trial beds. Whether we're talking about the control, rock dust, or biochar group, these beds probably have the richest soil in the whole garden. I say this for a couple of reasons. First, the compost has a more diverse variety of ingredients, including autumn leaves, straw, aged wood chips, horse manure, used coffee grounds, spent brewery grains, comfrey, grass clippings, yard waste, and kitchen scraps. Second, and perhaps more importantly, 16 pounds of worm castings were added to each 4x4 bed. The greens in these beds are doing amazingly well, especially the collards, which are growing so fast they're shading out the other plants. The tomatoes are doing well too, but should do even better now that they're finally growing taller than the greens and getting more sun. The only plants that are struggling a bit are the peppers, which were set back by an aphid infestation in the grow room and have been shaded out by the massive collard greens. We'll give the peppers a helping hand by harvesting the collards more aggressively so they can get more sun. Finally, let's take a look at what will be our new perennial bed. Just as I was planning to build the bed, we noticed these volunteer purple Peruvian potatoes coming up. We love these potatoes and don't want to disturb them, so we've delayed and altered our plan for the perennial bed. As you can see, I've partitioned it into 3 sections using old tree branches supported by rebar. This way we can let the potatoes continue to grow in the middle section and hill them up with free mulch, while I fill the rest of the bed with compost and worm castings, and plant edible perennials in the front and comfrey in the back for a nutrient-rich chop and drop. So far I've planted French sorrel in the front section, but we'll also plant Good King Henry there. After we harvest the potatoes, I'll top off the middle section with compost, worm castings, and sand, and plant sea kale. I'll pull out the rebar, but we'll probably keep the tree branches in the garden as a long-term source of nutrients. More trash put to good use in the service of nutritious and delicious food. Before closing, I wanted to say that I won't be playing my usual outro in this video. Instead, you'll see a clip from Chris Towerton's video on his 3-bay compost system. This is the type of compost system I wish I had and hope to eventually build. Chris has a wide variety of excellent urban permaculture design videos, covering topics ranging from rocket ovens to solar hot water to building swales. So I hope you'll check him out. Well, that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, remember, you can change the world 1 yard at a time.
When turning the layers, the top layer is first stripped off into a wheelbarrow. Skipping a layer in this way eventually allows us to run each layer through the centre of the pile twice during this process. Now this is important, as if we have any weed seeds present in the mix, by taking them beyond 50 degrees Celsius for at least 48 hours, it should ensure that these cease to be viable. As the compost progressed along, we took manual readings for each pile during each day, so it's actually real data that drives these thermometers. Now we ordinarily would have pulled the pin around the 60-day mark, but seeing as how we didn't have new material waiting to be composted, we've